Okay, so we're going to do something a little different today. We're going to talk about a game called Dragonball Fighter Z. Before we start, a couple things. So I have the Steam version. That is the version I'll be reviewing. Second, I really like fighting games, but I'm not very good at them. I'm not going to be able to go too in-depth into the mechanics of the game. This is a review from the perspective of a casual fan of the genre. Third, I really like Dragon Ball Z and have found the games consistently enjoyable, even if they're usually not masterpieces. So with that being said, let me give you the short version. Is the game good? Yes, very much so. It's probably the best DBZ game I've ever played. Is it worth buying? That is a trickier question and is going to depend on what you personally are looking for in a game like this. We'll come back to that. For now, let's dive in. Mechanically, the game reminds me most of Marvel vs. Capcom 3. There's a 3v3 tag system, you've got a Super VAR, you've got the X Factor system, and the game feels almost as fast. Fighter Z feels quite a bit less technical, though. Like most Dragon Ball Z games, you can get decently far if you just want to mash buttons. I can't speak to the skill ceiling, but the skill floor is decently low for this one. I really like how mobile the characters are. With a simple tap of the right trigger, my character will fly right over into my opponent's face. It makes the game feel very fast-paced and really aggressive. Projectiles still have value since you can use them to sneak some damage in on faraway opponents, but there's absolutely no way you could base your playstyle around them. I'm a fan of this since I've always found zoning to be boring to play and boring to play against. The game's biggest strengths are its fluid controls and its outstanding visuals. DBZ games have always been good about capturing the over-the-top visuals of the show, and Fighter Z is no exception. I mean, just look at it. This is an absolutely gorgeous game. There's only 24 playable characters, but my favorite thing about Fighter Z compared to previous titles is that the characters actually feel fairly distinct from one another. Goku is the balanced Ryu-type character, Vegeta plays like Goku but more aggressive, which makes sense, Frieza has lots of projectiles, Captain Ginyu has built-in assists that summon the rest of the Ginyu Force. My favorite is Kid Buu with his stretchy arms and fast attack speed. Apparently 8 more characters are coming, what seems like an absurdly overpriced $35 season pass, something to keep in mind. So mechanically the game is fantastic. It is exhilarating to play. The potential downside is everything else, really. If you're coming into this looking for single player content, you're probably going to be disappointed. It's not like there isn't single player content, it's just that it isn't very good. There's a bare bones arcade mode and a story. That's it. The story, while surprisingly lengthy, is pretty mediocre. I'm still not done with it myself. Maybe it picks up in its final third, but the first 2/3 have been a total slog. It's similar to Budokai 2's story mode, where you move around a little board and fight enemies. Nothing too exciting. My main issue is that it's too easy. Until about halfway through the game, the enemy AI was borderline brain dead. Picks up a bit in the back half, but by that point I was burnt out. There is a plot, complete with cutscenes and voice acting. It involves a new villain, Android 21. She's an android, but she looks like a female Majin Buu for some reason. I presume this is explained at some point in the final stretch of the game. Like the story mode itself, it is okay at best. As dumb as DBZ frequently was, the plot always took fun, unexpected turns that kept you engaged. This game's plot reminds me more of one of those DBZ movies. Bad guy shows up and fights the good guys. That's about it. There's also some goofy stuff about Z-Fighter clones and souls getting bound to different characters. Again, maybe it picks up in the last stretch, but as of right now I am thoroughly apathetic to the whole thing. The multiplayer half of the game fares a bit better. Basically, you can go into one of these lobbies where you can interact with other players. The lobbies can only hold 64 players apiece, and there's not very many of them, so I often have a hard time getting into one. This will presumably become less of an issue as we move further away from launch. The options here are basic but functional. There's ranked and casual online matchmaking. You can also play casual matches with other players in the lobby. I played several of these for test purposes, and the game played flawlessly online. So back to the question, should you buy this game? Do you think you'll get any use out of the game's online components? If yes, then I would absolutely get it. If you're planning on mostly playing by yourself, then I'd hold off. It's definitely worth playing, but I personally wouldn't pay more than $30 for it. Okay, I'm done talking now. Review is over. Goodbye.